A big thank you to Moja 2 Pro for supporting this video, the incredible measuring device perfect for outdoor design and surveying work. Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. Well, it's the field above the garden, as I am busy plotting out my next big planting project. Whenever I'm creating a new design or even just starting a new growing season, there's only one thing on my mind. Apart from lots of tasty food, which is my mind, but the one thing on my mind is stacking functions. And I've got a fun opportunity related to it at the end of the video. Okay, I admit it, stacking functions doesn't exactly sound like the most exciting thing, the most exciting principle. But to me, like, once you start stacking functions, you understand how to realize the full potential of either your design or your garden. In a nutshell, stacking functions is about understanding that everything can have more than one utility or more than one purpose. Every single plant, every single structure, every single detail can take on multiple roles that we can use to our advantage as gardeners to get as many different benefits as possible. For example, a polytunnel is not just here to help grow warm weather crops in a British summer. It helps you start seedlings off nice and early under cover. It can act as a garden office. It can be a shelter when it starts to rain. You can use it to store things to dry, or you can use it to dry seeds in. You can use it as a way to isolate plants for seed saving. You could use it to keep your chickens nice and happy in over winter. You can grow all of your winter salads in a polytunnel. A polytunnel is much more about just growing tomatoes, at least here in Wales. Stacking functions is about understanding that every single element in your garden can provide you with multiple benefits or multiple yields. Stacking functions is a bit of a hidden principle in permaculture because it isn't one of the 12 principles, but it doesn't mean that those are the only principles. And I think that the idea of stacking functions, which is something that you kind of come across quite often in the food forest world, is the combination of both the principle of integrate rather than segregate and to obtain a yield. So let me give you an example of stacking functions using the humble fava bean, which is a field bean or a broad bean. And I made a list that I'm going to go off of a few different functions, and I've got 10 pots. Each pot signifies a function that a field bean can provide. Now, one pot is grey, the rest is this, whatever this colour is, burnt sienna or raw umber or whatever. But this grey pot signifies a primary yield of a field bean. Why do we grow them? We want them mainly for the beans. And so I'm gonna start stacking functions here. Now, a field bean, you can also eat the flowers. The flowers are edible, so that's another function. And you can also use it to grow for shoots. The shoots are also edible. You also have the option of using this as a nitrogen fixer if you grow it as a cover crop, which also means you can use it as a living mulch over winter. And then another little thing is, well, you've got the flowers. The bumblebees always seem to love the flowers of fava bean, so it's great for pollinators. But that is not all, because you can get into another layer of depth if you wanted to. For example, you can eat the baby pods, you don't have to wait for the beans, so that's a different kind of harvest. The other thing is you can grow it as a seed crop. The other thing that you can do is you have the organic matter. When you harvest your beans, you have the organic matter that you can use as a compost material. And of course, because they grow fairly tall, they can provide some nice shade, especially earlier in the season for growing your salads. And so this is an example of stacking functions, of having like the primary, like food related and then soil pollinators, etc. functions of a field bean. And you can have the exact same multitude of functions for almost everything that you grow in any part of your garden. You can do it for tools, you can do it for polytunnels, you can do it for sheds, you can do it for the potato. There are so many functions that we can benefit from. So this grey pot that signifies kind of the primary purpose, you could choose any other purpose to be the primary reason for growing it, because permaculture is about finding solutions and being creative. And what you might actually find is, actually I do need more living structure earlier in the season for growing salads so they don't bolt. And so what you could do, I don't know if this is going to work, but the shade at the top, this could actually be your primary function or the primary reason for doing it. As long as you identify the primary and understand all of the rest, then you've got something that is really resilient and something that just gives you a huge amount of choice and option when it comes to designing a garden of your dreams. World record. What stacking functions enables you to do, and this is letting some dill grow, and I can see that there's a ladybird larvae looking nice and happy, but it gives you a 360-degree view of a particular element, and by having that amazing understanding, it allows you to make much quicker, more informed decisions when it comes to gardening and reaching your goals. Now I'm going to use today's sponsor, Mosure 2 Pro, as another perfect example of something which stacks functions. This little device uses motion-based technology to draw and measure multiple types of information simultaneously. For example, I use this to measure the initial perimeter and area of the orchard project and micro vineyard. Chin chin. I then use the points function to work out the contour or the fingerprint of the land, and I've got a nice 3D map to work off. And how I was using this earlier was using point to point, so I could mark out every 5 meters on contour where I'm going to be planting an apple tree. This device also does trace measurement, it can do volume, it can do angles, it can do length, and it can export the data in multiple ways. A new function with the Mosure 2 Pro which I'm really enjoying is the layout mode, which allows you to set out points on using coordinates, and it can take you exactly to those points, which is incredibly exciting if you want to, say, lay out an orchard and mark out where every tree goes, or maybe you're doing some fencing or you're building a chicken area. I did a little test where I was thinking, okay, I want to build say like a 6-meter diameter roundhouse, and I want that to be 8 points. So I just used ChatGPT to work out the coordinates. I put that into Mosure 2 Pro, and then it laid it out perfectly in like less than a minute. I could go out onto site and lay out exactly where each point or each post of that roundhouse would go.
You can even play a game with yourself with big projects to see how accurate you can become.
Yeah, well, Sam, you have to look at this. My last one. 5, 5, gradient 0, angle 0.
Very nice.
That's the best one yet. So as you can see, the Mosure 2 Pro is a perfect example of stacking functions. And if you are a professional in the field of, say, landscape design, architecture, doing surveying, building work, contracting, and also, as I'm finding, in permaculture design, this will become your new planning and design assistant. Find out more about the Mosure 2 Pro using the link in the description. So while stacking functions is a principle, it's also a skill, and it is a skill that you can learn. When I ran my 5-day permaculture kitchen gardening course earlier this year, I would often start a session with something called the object exercise, which practices that kind of creative lateral thinking. And I'm going to show you a clip of it, kind of in action, and then I'll show you how you can do it as well at home. But we're gonna set a timer, and I want you guys to come up with as many different uses for a single brick. How many different things can you do with a brick? So, doorstop. There we go. A slug stamper. And then obviously dominoes. And there you have it. All right. So we started off with a brick that you build a house with, but then in 2 minutes we've listed all of those different things that you can do with a brick. That is just a perfect example of stacking functions. So to do the object exercise, all you need is like a pen and a paper and a timer for 2 minutes. And you want to find like just random objects around your house, and then you can convert it to your garden later on. But for example, you might choose like a mug or a clothes hanger, and you set the timer for 2 minutes, and you try and think of as many different ways that you could use something like a clothes hanger beyond its main utility. For example, you could use this in a greenhouse for drying herbs, or you could use it if you're desperate to use as kindling for a fire. Just like, there's no right or wrong answer, it's just practicing that outside of the box thinking. After the 2 minutes is up, kind of like sleep on it for a day and come back the next day and set another 2-minute timer, and you'll be surprised how many more things you think of. And that's just a very simple example of how you can start to design, or how to find multiple functions from a single item. Permaculture design is about problem solving and coming up with solutions. And the more that you practice this, for example, you could then think, hey, grass clippings, what are all of the things that grass clippings can offer me? And what it means is that if you come up with a potential or come up against a potential challenge, it is much easier for you to find a solution using the resources that you have to then overcome that challenge. That is why I love stacking functions so much. So of course my future orchard project is going to be more than just one function. It's not just going to be the goal of providing apples for making cider. That is the main function. There's a lot of other things I want to do. I want to experiment with linear food forest designs and techniques and kind of temperate based and tropic farming, just try out all of these different things. I also want it to be a space for nature and to help wildlife. I want it as a way to create shade, so I have the option if I wanted to in between to maybe run chickens in between the apple trees. That would be quite nice. I also want to integrate soft fruit and certain herbaceous plants within the orchard, so it's not literally a monoculture of apple trees. And the other thing I want to do is I want to grow very rare varieties so I can keep kind of the genetic pool going and just to protect them from extinction. The other function that I want from this space is like a nice kind of naturalistic aesthetic, which is why I am planting on contour. I'm not using keyline design, so it doesn't matter if the rows widen or narrow. It's going to have a really nice kind of feel that maps out the pattern and the shape of the land. In my upcoming Hughes Garden Diaries video, which, well, yes, it's coming back, but onto Substack, not YouTube, I will be explaining it in more detail about how to do contours, how amazing it is with the Moja 2 Pro, but also if you just have a small space, you can create something called an A-frame, super easy, and you can use that to measure your own contours as well. And we go into the benefits of contours and all of that, so stay tuned. A huge part of permaculture design is observation and observing plants and how things work and how we can benefit from them. So everything has more than one function that you grow in your garden. Okay, this white cosmos, it isn't edible, but it looks lovely. But it doesn't just look lovely like outside. You can use it as a cut flower to bring inside. You can, at the moment, there's actually a fair few bumblebees enjoying it. I could grow it as a seed crop if I wanted, and it's a nice way to just enclose this space, and it's still helping soil life by putting out the root exudates and the sugars into the soil. So again, it's multifunctional. Everything is multifunctional in the garden, and I kind of feel like the more that we understand how multifunctional everything is, the more depth we have to creating a really, really productive garden. Because of Moja kindly supporting this video and the work that I do, I thought I'd pass it on and give one of you an opportunity to win a ticket to my 5-day permaculture kitchen gardening course that I'm going to be running again next year. And to enter, it's going to be fun. I want you to pick any kind of plant or crop that you enjoy in the garden and to just stack or list as many functions, as many purposes, as many yields as possible down in the comment section. There's no like right or wrong. I'm not going to be picking who has the most functions or something, but it's a great way to exercise that skill. And then I'll use a random comment picker to pick one of the winners. All of the details in the video description, but I think that'll be a lot of fun. So good luck, and thank you once again to Moja 2 Pro for sponsoring this video. This is kind of a game-changing bit of kit for me.